listening to ABC Radio.
You are indeed, Noah, so energetically lip-syncing to the sports Strangers on a Train all the way through that I'm almost out of breath as we return, but not quite, which is fortunate because we have a most intriguing topic at hand, the topic of money. Now, you may say, oh, I don't like talking very much about money. Well, that may be, part of the problem. It is a bit of a taboo that we tend not to talk about matters financial. And it does lead to some very interesting and unusual and not necessarily healthy situations. To help us unpick this, financial therapist and educator Jane Monica Jones joins us. Jane, good evening and welcome to Evenings.
Thanks, Casey. Nice to be here.
It's a delight to have you. Now, we're talking about money. That's what I've been saying all the way through tonight at different times. But it seems like something that we're sort of taught, I think, early on that it's incredibly appropriate and modest that we don't talk about money, that we avoid talking about money. But it does bring us unstuck to some degree?
Yes, look, absolutely. There are certain sort of traditions, we might say, that we don't talk openly about money, and that could be due to past history where money may have been tight for some. Certainly things like the depression or recessions when some people are struggling and others aren't, that people find it very challenging to go through that sort of vulnerable stage. So we kind of teach, or we've taught for a long time, not to talk about money, and that's very much passed down as a kind of cultural norm, But as you're sort of mentioning, it just opens to some pretty tricky, problematic things if we don't have capacity or feel safe to be able to speak openly about our money situations.
Well, okay, you've intrigued me, and I can think of a couple off the top of my head, I guess, but I'm interested to see how you lay them out. What would you say are the disadvantages to our closed-mouthedness about our finances?
Yeah, look, probably one of the biggest one is that if we're having challenges around losing our job, large amounts of debt, we may not seek help. We may, that may impact our mental health, and we of course know that our mental health needs a lot of support. Just like how we didn't talk about mental health issues, the challenges around our challenges with money may mean that we don't talk about the effect on our mental health. So again, that's a big fat problem. And when we have a culture that says that we can't talk about it, then there's kind of a lack of psychological safety for me to go, I need to speak to someone about this, but culture says I shouldn't. So that mental health piece is a really big problem when we feel, exist in a culture that feels that we can't talk openly about money, like it's a taboo.
I can imagine, but there are also, I guess, sort of societal difficulties with the lack of transparency on matters financial.
Yeah, look, that's right. It is that kind of cultural piece, and particularly to do with, say, history where, some people did have money and others didn't, and then you don't want to kind of shame or, blame so much. But also, too, there's that thing around, we look at in the genders around pay gaps and gender gaps as well, that when we don't have a very open kind of overt sort of gender process or auditing or whatever, that can become a little bit hidden and murky, that, there's certain gender get paid a little less, or individuals get paid less inside of doing same jobs. So it kind of opens into that potentially murky and unclear and clarified area. And I think that can be very problematic around mental health, around gender pay gaps, around, basically we kind of have a thing in Western societies, it doesn't necessarily happen everywhere, that the value of a human is almost marked against the amount of wealth that they have or don't have. Now, that's not necessarily true or right, or maybe right, but it certainly is a big piece in most societies. Now, if you don't feel like you sit on the right scale to be worthy, well, successful, all that, because you don't have that income, then society's kind of measuring me that it doesn't matter that I contribute a lot to my community or I'm really great to my children, my family. If I'm not wealthy, am I as valuable? So these are big fat narratives that actually kind of measure people against this arbitrary number, I might be really great community advocate, yet because I'm not earning a lot, maybe I'm not as valuable to society.
Is there a degree to which, I guess, sort of commercial forces are interested in us not exchanging that information so that we might conceivably more often live in a state of perceived envy? Oh my God, that person is probably making far more than me, or that I'm not sharing that information, but everyone else seems to be doing so well and is sort of
and I think most advertising kind of campaigns would have a little bit of that aspirational element to it. A lot of what we see in advertising is sort of built around that. I don't think it's really deliberate. I think it's a kind of cultural thing, and I think, say, in my generation, I'm in my 50s, it wasn't sort of done. But I know that there's generations coming up now that money conversations, and we're teaching people to be a bit better armed at having those kind of intimate, personal, familial money conversations, of which it was just no territory of that when I was growing up.
No.
So it is a culture. And so, of course, then that's going to be filtering out into the workplaces. It's going to be filtering out in politics, It's going to be filtering everywhere. So I don't think it's deliberate. There are certain components that may be some aspirational strategies for advertisement, but I think it is cultural. Right.
So those you do perceive a generational difference there in terms of folks being willing to talk about it.
There's a lot of, Australia is pretty good. We're very good at financial literacy, which is knowing, what budgets and, knowing the know-how. Financial capability, which is like, I know how to do it and I feel capable to do it. So Australia is sort of growing in that financial capability space. There is lots of really fabulous resources for Australians to get better at being with money. And one of the big pushes is looking at those sort of soft skills, a lot of the stuff that I'm working with people is, sure, you know how to budget, the principles behind getting a mortgage and then maybe paying a mortgage, but I'm really promoting, have you got what it takes? Have you got that longevity of confidence? Have you got that kind of behaviour modification so that you don't spend your mortgage payments and all that sort of stuff? And Australia is really, really doing quite well in leading from example about that sort of soft skilling to get us better with money. So part of that is saying, we have to say, and I'm challenged for this area. I'm challenged with sticking to a budget because my life is very stressful and I need a little bit more, play in my life. So we're starting to kind of take it out of the know-how a little bit more into the psychology and behaviour. It's
very valid because I guess when I say when I think that we're not good at talking about money, my immediate thought is that that's going to be related to just salary, or to what we earn or what we don't earn. But you're saying that reticence sort of leaches out into a whole bunch of different areas of sort of financial negotiation and responsibility.
Yeah, look, the thing is that, as Australians, as humans, we've evolved to survive better in a tribe, yeah?
Oh, look, so as Australians, we've evolved even better than that.
Yeah, that's right, yes, we're a particular type of tribe. But what happens is, in modern society, we've got this kind of social norm that says, well, if you're in this category with this amount of money, then you should be, you kind of accepted into the social norm. Now, if you're not in that, then you feel like you're outside of the tribe. And this is, this primary motivator, I want to connect with the tribe, yet the tribe's got $1 million and I don't have it. That's kind of a big divide for people, yeah? Australia has been, in that past, that great tall poppies, we've kind of been a very sort of equal nation, tall poppy syndrome, sort of cutting people down to sort of be equal. But that's not happening, particularly when you get bigger divides in income, that there is the ones that have and have not, and then that has a lot of impact on this individual psychology and the cultural psychology.
All right, Jane, we've talked a lot about the problem. Now let's start getting to solutions. How are we going to navigate our way through this? How are we going to start folks talking, feeling free to talk, feeling free to open up? And what are the strategies that your everyday person can use to broach the topic with friends or ease into conversations? Or what's the way forward?
Yeah, look, I think we start firstly probably in anywhere that's psychologically safe. So intimate relationships are usually a bit more psychologically safe than, say, maybe discussing it with a colleague, yeah? Mm-hmm. So what it means is that when we share something psychologically safe, it means that we feel that we're at least someone's going to understand me and maybe have a little bit of compassion for me. So choosing the right context and the right people, yeah? That's a really important thing. Make sure you feel psychologically safe before you even head out. That one easy. So that intimate relationships can be a really great part. Get kind of curious with yourself. How do I, beyond how much I make, how much do I stress about money? How much do I compare myself against others? All that kind of curiosity. We often go into a lot of judgment about how we do money. I always, trying to inspire, let's just get curious. Maybe you didn't get the tools when you were younger, or you didn't get the right sort of start in life, but to get curious about how you do it and how you can change is a really great place to make change of any kind, financial, personal, health, all that.
It's an interesting
so those
way
probably two ones.
It's an interesting way to phrase it, that notion of getting curious, because I think the notion is normally either step forward boldly in the manner that you normally do, or beat yourself up about the way you behave. And,
exactly.
And that can be a sort of not a very appealing way to step forward. But that notion of curiosity is a very sort of open-handed and interesting one.
Yeah, look, we often think, there's plenty of things that are going to beat us down in life, ourselves and life in general. Curiosity is a really lovely approach to just go, you know what, I may not have got the tools and the strategies in the past because of my history. No fault of mine. It was just not there at the time or whatever, or I wasn't ready to be able to kind of knuckle down. But if I stay curious, I can say, where have I come? Where am I now? How can I change? What's happening in me? It just keeps that little judge voice that often likes to come in on us, ready to pounce on how terrible we are at everything, basically. So curiosity is a really great medicine for anyone that I'm working with around financial therapy.
So we start talking about the ways in which we feel stressed, or the ways in which we feel judged or judge ourselves in terms of what we earn, or the way in which we spend or use money. Yeah. What's our next? I guess our next step beyond that will be dictated by responses to and our feelings about those revelations, I guess.
Yeah, that's true. And then that could be, you could break that down. Is it that I don't have knowledge, that financial literacy piece? Do I need to get a bit more knowledge? So you might be able to say, okay, I need to do something a bit more knowledge-y, like find out about budgets or find out about investments. Or don't I have financial capability? Is there something in my kind of day-to-day application of the way I do money that when I get stressed, I go and spend it all? Okay, so maybe I have to move away from just looking at money and then looking at me and stress, So money can be a really great lens to kind of look about how we operate as humans, as individuals. What's our psychology? Where are we, our whole system, basically, because it's when we're talking about money, we're not talking about the numbers. We're actually talking about survival and thriving at the basic levels. Do I feel like I've got what it takes to put the roof over my head, to put food in my belly and clothes on my back? And that's a big deal. People kind of go, it's just money, we shouldn't be emotional. Hey, it's really emotional.
It is. It's a topic that's naturally emotional. I think let's go to the phones. I think we've got Chris from Dandenong. Chris, what's your perspective on this?
Yeah, the idea of relaxing is wonderful, but I live week to week on the money I make.
Yep.
And I've worked out so far that for me to survive and just survive, I've got to make $200 a day. So if I go along and take, I've got to relax, that means tomorrow or the day after I've relaxed, I've got to make sure that I make $400 in that day to make that space. I mean, my life at the moment is I work 7 days a week. and I haven't had a holiday in, I can't remember. And because the circumstances are out of my control, I now have to hire a truck as well. And I've got my rent and I've got to hire the truck. And as that, if I take a day off, I've got to find that extra money. So how do you solve that problem?
So not knowing enough, like any therapist, I can't talk to you. I'm getting a little snapshot of what's happening for you, and I can't really speak to how can that solve you. But it's about trying to find, okay, is it that you feel that you can't have the knowledge to actually budget the money that you do get, or is it that you don't feel capable to maybe bring in more money? So which kind of, on the scale of financial literacy to financial capability, might be the way you might need to go? Yeah. Okay. Well, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. My background is my dad left when I was young.
Yeah.
So I, eventually got married, had children, and in my headspace was that I've got to make sure there's money over the family's head, and that's it. So my whole life, I've just gone and worked and worked and worked. I'm literacy-wise, I'm pretty poor.
Yep.
But when it comes to talking the gab and making contacts with people face to face,
that's where you're showing.
That's where I'm good, and I've got literacy problems and things like that. So my system is when I do deliveries from places, I say to them, right, you need to text me your name and address to my phone, and then when you do that, I'll put it in my diary.
Yeah.
But the main aim of them texting me, it's just tricks that I've picked up over the years, is that they've just handed me their address and their contact details.
That's right.
Yeah. So already listening to you, Chris, already I can tell a little bit about you that there is a resourcefulness in you, yeah? So maybe you may have... Yeah, exactly. And that's often the part that then we can bring, that quality that we can often bring to our relationship with money. I didn't get the support from my family when I was growing up, but I've been working the way I've been working, and I've found some resourcefulness. And if you went to work with a financial counsellor or a therapist or someone that could get you a bit sort of support, they'd be able to get that natural resourcefulness that you have learned to actually amplify and work better for your financial system. So,
So I've got to spend money to make money.
No, there's lots of free resources. Financial counsellors in Australia are free. They give you lots of fabulous resources. Anyone in Australia can access that.
Thanks very much for your call, Chris. We've got to move on.
Okay.
It's Chris from Dandenong. Thanks very much, Chris, for that. It must be the situation, Jane, when you're dealing with things, especially when we get situations like that sprung on you on the fly, that you're negotiating a sort of an interlocking series of influences on...
That's it. So, I mean, the thing is that money is also that psychology, It has issues of self-worth. It has issues of confidence, how empowered I feel. So I might teach you how to budget, but you might feel like totally incapable with numbers. Your literacy might be a bit challenging, and every time you sit down in front of an Excel spreadsheet or even just a piece of paper with a table on it, you might just freak out, And that's kind of the psychological piece. And it feels such a gift to be in the field that I'm in, because often we kind of go, you know what, I didn't get the learning as a kid, and so I'm done. I'm out. I'm never going to get ahead. But we know that we can improve our mental health. We know that we can improve our confidence, our sense of agency and empowerment, and we can then apply that to something like money.
It is. I understand that. I think also it is a tricky situation often when you're in a situation where you feel under the pump, and it seems like the opportunity to change your situation is just not one that you can... that you have the
luxury to have space to do. Yeah. And absolutely. And look, that's another kind of muscle that we have to develop. How do I find a little, because we often, there's a really great quality that us as humans do, is that we can override. We might have absolutely everything going on and we feel terrible, but yet there's that part of a quality in us, in all of us, until we basically leave this model coil, to override. I've just got to get up and get on. Yeah. Now that's the thing that as a therapist I'm looking for. That quality that says, you know what, my life is still shit, but I'm still, excuse me, my life is still terrible, but I'm still going to go on. And everyone's pretty much got that until the end of they leave this planet. And so if you know that you get up to go to work to kind of do your day-to-day 7 days like Chris is doing, there's a quality in him that's just doing it. And if you go and see a financial counselor or some sort of practitioner that are free, that can help you build on that, then that could be your clincher. That's your way out. So, the thing around money is that we often feel like we didn't get the tool, but there's always something in someone that said, well, look, you're still here. You're still surviving. Let's build on that.
Absolutely. We do have a message from Lucinda, a listener, who says, can you provide a telephone for the financial counselling service for those not familiar with how to access it? For example, is it accessed through your local council?
So you just search National Debt Helpline, or just search financial counsellors, and there will be financial counsellor near me. It'll come up with Anglicare, Catholic Care, Uniting Care, Lifeline, all those sort of organisations.
Ah, yes, I see. They call the number for the National Debt Helpline, which we can give you because it's a governmental organisation, is 1800 007 007. That's
and they will direct you to the local financial counselling services.
That's right, and that's 9:30am to 4:30 p.m. weekdays. 1800 007 007. Jane Monica Jones, thank you so much.
You're welcome
for your financial therapy and education on this Tuesday Eve.
Great, thanks, Casey. Nice to be here.
Lovely to have you, Jane Monica Jones, there, financial therapist and educator, talking about money. Oh, in the meantime, I've got to get back